Okay, hi. So I'm Omer Anson. I work for Huawei. I am the Dragonflow PTL, and I want to what's the right button? Complain about how we do networking in OpenStack. Currently, we do networking like as if it's the physical networks. We still have networks. We still have routers and ports and security groups. Now, I'm not quite sure why we still do that, because if we look at other solutions like how Kubernetes does it, so you put a single item in a pod, which is a network namespace, and it has its own IP, and then you can collect it in a load balancer, which they call a service, and then these load balancers have virtual IPs which have DNS names, and they have some implementation of security, but the problem with this solution is that it lacks the power of OpenStack. In OpenStack, there was a lot of work that has already been done into the networking unit, into the networking part of OpenStack that hasn't made it all the way to Kubernetes. So what I suggest we do is that we try to somehow merge this idea. Put virtual machines or even containers or pods or ports in groups. We can give each group a name, and then it acts as a DNS name as well. The groups can communicate between themselves, but you have to define which groups can communicate, and this is similar to the security groups that exist today, but it's more abstract. And then you can add in the communication part between these groups, you can add all sorts of new features like firewall, like elastic load balancing, which should be built in, VPN, QoS, and it's very nice to notice how IPs don't come into play here. I haven't mentioned IP once. Everything works by names. Everything works by something that a regular human can understand, rather than someone who should know networking. Once you do that, you can also have all sorts of other features. Load balancing I've already mentioned. You can, if you build your software in a way that is API based, then you can access it externally, and then you can use a VPN endpoint or public IPs. You can add a firewall to protect that, and obviously, it would be nice to be able to integrate these things, this solution, with existing solutions, because legacy networking is still interesting, it's still something we may want to keep. Using Heat and Magnum to deploy things, using SFC to deploy additional services between groups or inside groups, or maybe even use these groups and load balancing to implement SFC. That's it. So, in general, the idea is that we can do better than physical networks. We are not using a physical network anymore. We shouldn't stick to that way of thinking. We should be able to say what we want to connect, not how to connect these things. And then I think it would be easier to add cool features. And because I'm the Dragonflow PTL, I'll also add that I think it would be easiest to do this in Dragonflow. Okay, thank you.